live. Talk about Joe Biden. That creep.
So what do you do?
I told her I was gonna talk about that.
cave of Hira. The angel came to him in it and asked him to read. The prophet replied, I do not know how to read. The angel caught me forcefully and pressed me so hard that I could not bear it anymore. He then released me and asked me to read. And I replied, I do not know how to read. Whereupon he caught me again and pressed me a second time until I could not bear it anymore. Then he released me and asked me again to read. But again I replied, I do not know how to read. Or, what shall I read? Thereupon he caught me for the third time and pressed me and then released me and said, read in the name of your Lord, who has created all that exists. He has created man from a clot. Read, and your Lord is most generous, up to that which he knew not. Then Muhammad returned with the inspiration, his neck muscles twitching with terror, till he entered upon Khadijah and said, cover me, cover me. They covered him till his fear is over. And then he said, oh Khadijah, what is wrong with me? Then he told her everything that had happened and said, I fear that something may happen to me. Khadijah said, never, but have the glad tidings, for by Allah, Allah will never disgrace you, as you keep good relations with your kin and kith. Speak the truth, help the poor and the destitute. Serve your guests generously, and assist the deserving, calamity-afflicted ones. Khadijah then accompanied him to her cousin, Waraqwa bin Nawfal bin Asad bin Abdul Uzza, long name, who during the pre-Islamic period became a Christian and used to write the writing with Hebrew letters. He would write from the gospel in Hebrew as much as Allah wished him to write. He was an old man and had lost his weight. Khadijah said to Waraqwa, listen to the story of your nephew, O my cousin. Waraqwa said, O my nephew, what have you seen? Allah's apostle described whatever he had seen. Waraqwa said, this is the same one who keeps the secrets, Angel Gabriel, whom Allah has sent to Moses. I wish I were young and could live up to the time where your people will turn you out. Muhammad asked, will they drive me out? Waraqwa replied in the affirmative and said, anyone, man, who came with something similar to what you have brought was treated with hostility. And if I should remain alive till the day when you will be turned out, then I would support you strongly. But after a few days, Waraqwa died, and the divine inspiration was also paused for a while. And the prophet became so sad, as we have heard, that he intended several times to throw himself from the tops of high mountains. And every time he went up to the top of a mountain in order to throw himself down, Gabriel would appear before him and say, O Muhammad, you are indeed Allah's apostle in truth. Whereupon his heart will become quiet and he will calm down and will return home. And whenever the period of the calming of the inspiration used to become long, he would do as before. But when he used to reach the top of a mountain, Gabriel would appear before him and say to him what he has said before. There are a number of slight variations to this story, related by different people, describing Muhammad's visitation by a spirit, identifying himself as the angel Gabriel. These stories do not always agree with each other in perfect detail, but on the whole, a complete picture can be drawn of Muhammad's initial experience with the spirit and his reactions after. And that's what I just presented. From this encounter, Muslims believe that Allah, through the Archangel Gabriel, gave the collection of revelations to Muhammad that are now preferred as the Islamic scriptures.
Shalom, family. Shalom, shalom. It's good to see you. As you see the title of this, we're going to go a little different with the direction. Usually what we do is focus on prophecy, but today I think it's very important to understand what's going on concerning the election and the two that's actually supposed to be president between Donald Trump and obviously Joe Biden. I wanted to go over some information concerning these things. Shalom, family. Shalom. It's good to see you. Shalom. So let peace be with everyone. First thing, as always, we're going to say the Lord's Prayer. Our Father in heaven, honored be thy name. May thy kingdom come. May thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us each day our daily bread, and forgive us of our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us on a righteous path and guard us from the evil one. Amen. May this prayer be on all. This prayer, as always, I always mention, this is the most ultimate prayer. It hits every single thing. If you can think of anything, everything is already laid out. His will, his glory, giving him glory, the forgiveness to forgive others, the protection, everything is in that prayer. So we say that prayer every day so that everyone is sprinkled with that clean water. And that's why we're going to get going in this word, because we already now have that clean water. So with clean lips, let's continue with this holy conversation, and let's talk about something a little controversial, a little political, but we're going to get really, really serious with this. As you know before, the prophecy does say that Trump is the last Trump. The scriptures declare that there's going to be a last Trump. That play on words, Trump, cannot be negated because that's not how you write trumpet. That's not how you write trumpet. The way that is written, you write trumpet as in whole trumpet. When it's cut short like that, that's a play on words that is doing there. We're having a play on words for that. But I want to talk about the contender. I want to talk about Joe Biden. In case you don't know, Joe Biden is a supporter of the Muslim movement that's going on. And I want to show you some interesting videos from someone from this Acts 17. This is David Wood. I just want to show you some videos there, and I'm going to talk about these things because some of these things are very serious. As you know, the prophecies point and tell us that from Islam shall rise up the beast, because those are the descendants of Ishmael. So let's actually just see this. Let's see this first, and then we're going to talk about it.
Of Islamophobia.
Let's skip it over. Now, just a warning. I'm more of a serious person. I don't laugh. I don't find a lot of humor. I try to laugh. I try to make some things humorous. He's more of a humorous talker. So ignore the humor. He might have some humor in there, but if you're not a humorous person, ignore it.
In the 20s,
he's a wise man. Just to give some background about him, he has some very validated degrees. I believe he has a master's degree in some of these things. He's a very wise person, so he does know what he's saying, and his stuff that he's saying can be checked. The stuff that he's saying can be checked. So this is what he's going to say here, so it's going to be some interesting stuff. But first, not this one. I'm going to go to a different one before I go to this one. I want to show you first this one. I want to show you why it's so important to understand that political things can also cause problems in other areas. Because what Biden does here is actually pretty profound. I want to play this one for you.
He just had to talk about Muhammad. I know he was reading a script. I know that. But he just had to read what the script said about Muhammad. I don't say much about elections. All these politicians have to do is not say something stupid about Muhammad. I don't care if they talk about Muhammad. Just don't say something stupid, and they won't hear a word from me. Unfortunately, we've got a man who's running for president of the United States of America, quoting Muhammad without having the slightest clue what the quote actually means. But I know what it means. And you're about to know what it means. And once you understand what it means, you'll understand why a man who wants to be president of the United States should not be quoting these words. Joe Biden just said to his Muslim listeners,
Hadith from the Prophet Muhammad instructs, whomever among you sees a wrong, let him change it with his hand. If he is not able, then with his tongue. If he is not able, then with his heart.
What a great quote. I wonder what Muhammad meant by it. Did Muhammad mean what Joe Biden apparently thinks he meant?
Amen.
Let's find out. In Sahih Muslim 177, a small dispute breaks out because a Muslim is about to deliver a sermon before the prayer. Another Muslim objects and points out that Muhammad would do the sermon after the prayer. So we have to do things the way Muhammad commanded. And then there's this quote. I heard the messenger of Allah say, whoever among you sees an evil action, let him change it with his hand by taking action. If he cannot, then with his tongue by speaking out. And if he cannot, then with his heart by hating it and feeling it is wrong. And that is the weakest of faith. So far, so good. But sometimes we have multiple hadiths, and one hadith will expand upon another hadith. Maybe we should check and see if Muhammad explains himself. The next hadith, Sahih Muslim 178, is basically a repeat of 177, but the one after that goes into a little more detail about what Muhammad means by the hand, the tongue, and the heart. Sahih Muslim 179. It was narrated from Abu Rafi, from Abdullah bin Masud, that the Messenger of Allah said, there is no prophet whom Allah sent to any nation before me, but he had disciples and companions among his nation who followed his path and obeyed his commands. Then after them came generations who said what they did not do and did what they were not commanded to do. Whoever strives against them with his hand is a believer. Whoever strives against them with his tongue is a believer. Whoever strives against them with his heart is a believer. Beyond that, there is not even a mustard seed's worth of faith. So, prophets are sent to their nations and they give commands. They establish laws. Their followers obey their commands. But later generations come along and they don't obey the commands. So the true followers of the prophet have to strive against these rebellious people with the hand, i.e. by physically forcing them to obey God's law, or if they can't strive with the hand because their enemies are more powerful than they are, then they can strive with the tongue, i.e. by preaching and condemning and rebuking and winning support. Or if it's too dangerous for them to verbally condemn the rebellious generation because they might get killed or something, then they can strive with the heart, i.e. by inwardly despising the evil and rebellion against the prophet, and by longing for the day when the prophet's commands can be enforced by the hand. According to Muhammad, if you strive with your hand, you're a believer, a Muslim. If you strive with your tongue, you're a believer, a Muslim. If you strive with your heart, you're a believer, a Muslim. But if you don't at least strive with your heart, if you don't at least hate the rebellion against the Prophet's laws, you have no real faith. You're not a Muslim. Now, when it comes to Muhammad, he's not simply a prophet sent to a particular nation. He's God's final prophet, and he's sent to the entire world. His commands are for everyone. There's a word for the collection of legal commands Muhammad brought. The word is Sharia. So Muhammad brought Sharia, and his followers obeyed his commands. But other people don't obey his commands. What are his followers supposed to do? They're supposed to strive against disobedience and rebellion with the hand or with the tongue, or at the very least, with the heart. Do you know what the Arabic word for strive here is?
So you see what he's saying here? That's how it's showing the strive. So basically, you can see Biden, he's basically one of those people that you cannot trust. He's one of those people that is willing to get the popular vote no matter what he has to do. It's the same thing we've seen with the presidents before. We're seeing a lot of that willing to do things that are very strange and are very controversial and very ignorant, and does not realize what they're saying, because basically he was basically saying wage jihad, because he was quoting a quote. If you read it in Islamic, they will clearly say, it would clearly say to wage jihad. But let them explain more.
All the Arabic speakers who are watching right now certainly do. The Arabic word is jahadahum, i.e. wage jihad. Muhammad brought Sharia, and his followers have to establish and enforce it. They establish and enforce it through different forms of jihad. There's jihad of the hand, establishing and enforcing Sharia through fighting and carrying out the legal punishments. Think ISIS. There's jihad of the tongue, preaching and condemning and calling for Sharia. Think Anjem Choudhury. And there's jihad of the heart, hating the evil around you and longing for the day when it will be destroyed. So, Joe Biden just told Muslims,
Hadith from the Prophet Muhammad instructs, whomever among you sees a wrong, let him change it with his hand. If he is not able, then with his tongue. If he is not able, then with his heart.
any Muslim who actually knows his sources and understands his religion just heard Joe Biden say, Muhammad commanded you to kill apostates and to kill homosexuals and to chop the hands off of thieves and to terrorize the unbelievers. So you need to obey him to whatever extent you're able, depending on your status in society. The United States of America is in rebellion against the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad, so wage whatever form of jihad you can against it, because if you don't, you're not a real Muslim. Probably not what he intended, but that's what informed Muslims just heard him say. Now, there are a couple of possibilities here. Joe Biden's speechwriter might be a total moron who did a Google search for great quotes from the Prophet Muhammad and put this quote into the speech without realizing what the quote is actually about. A more disturbing possibility is that an informed Muslim wrote that speech for Biden and that it was a coded message to other informed Muslims. The message would be something like, this guy will say whatever we tell him to say. To prove it, we'll have him call for jihad against his own country. Vote for him because he's ours now. For those of you who are cheering because I just criticized Joe Biden and raised a disturbing possibility about why he accidentally
I must leave this one. So that's one. This is really disturbing because this just shows the ignorance, as well as most of them are ignorant. But this just shows the ignorance of what someone's willing to do to get the popular vote from one side than the other. Because remember, he doesn't even know what he's doing. This whole thing that's happening with Islam, this is indeed where the Antichrist is coming up. Already, there's many Antichrists, as the scriptures tell us. There's many Antichrists. But this specific teaching is 100% anti-Christ, anti-Christian. It's a completely opposite message than Christianity. Let's go to this one.
For 8 years, Joe Biden was sniffing women and girls as vice president of the United States of America, and I didn't say a word. Why? Because when he wasn't busy sniffing some girl's hair, he was busy keeping his mouth shut. Keeping your mouth shut is a vice president's most important job, so I left him alone. But now Joe Biden is running for president, and he wants the Muslim vote. So he comes out of nowhere and says that he wants Islam taught in public schools. Many people think that Joe Biden is simply pandering to the religious sensitivities of Muslims here. But what if there's a more important reason Joe Biden wants to teach your kids about Islam? Let's see what Joe Biden said, and then we'll see if we can figure out the real reason he said it.
One of the things I think is important, I wish we taught more in our schools about the Islamic faith. I wish we talked about all the great confessional faiths. It's one of the great confessional faiths. And what people don't realize, is one of my avocation is theology, don't realize is that we all come from the same root here in terms of...
You see this? This is the example that we need to understand what's the difference between Trump and these previous presidents. You guys understand that the President Trump, what he basically did by becoming president is that he opened up a lot of doors to find a lot of information. Because Trump, if you actually do a little research behind him, he's not like he's not like George Bush. He's not like Obama. He's not like a lot of the sets that are actually a family. A lot of those previous presidents were families, and they were obviously part of this little secret organization. You can hear a lot of it with the skulls and bones, obviously with the Illuminati and the Freemasons and all that stuff. And what's that number? The 322 or something like that, where they got the skulls and bones in society, where they got secret handshakes and secret meetings and secret things like that. They did not want Trump to become president because he's not part of that. He's not part of that whole organization. In fact, if you do a little more research, you might find out that Trump is part of another team of people, which they call Q. They call them Q, but they're people that's trying to examine and find out what's actually going on. It's a different thing. I'm not going to go over it right now, but it's a different thing that's going on with that. But with this, we're seeing these people who are part of a close tie-in family that obviously doesn't really have any, they're not showing their true self, but they're willing to get that popular vote so that they can have that power. They'll do whatever they can with a smile on their face and a wink in their eye, and they'll try to get whatever they can because they have a tongue like a dragon. So a lot of them still have that tongue like a dragon. They're going to say whatever they want to say to get that popular vote. And the worst thing that he's doing here is doing that with Muslims, because what's going to happen is very, 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 very soon to happen. And it has to do with these people. So you can see that he is obviously, it makes it clear he's not on the side of truth. He's not on the side of America, because if he was on the side of America, he wouldn't be trying to get Islam entangled in the children's education. Understand that. Because if you learn a lot of behind that Islam teaching, it's violence. It's sexual immoral. In fact, their paradise is sexually immoral. The whole thing, the whole story of it is completely abominable to the sense of abomination. And the only reason people accept it is because of what's called social acceptance. Being socially acceptance isn't acceptable to God. Understand that. That's what the scripture tells us. If we go and please men rather than God, then we're not pleasing God. We're pleasing men. And anyone who pleases man cannot please God. So you got to understand these things. So let it play.
Our fundamental basic beliefs.
So, to be fair, Joe Biden didn't say that kids should only learn about Islam. He said that they should learn about all of the confessional faiths, not just Islam, but also Judaism and Christianity. Now, the obvious question that arises here is, who gets to put together the Islam curriculum? If students were going to be given accurate information about Islam, I'd be all for it. Most of my subscribers would be thrilled if students were taught the truth about Muhammad. It would make our job a lot easier. And yet Muslims cheered when Joe Biden said that kids should be taught Islam. They praised Joe Biden for saying that kids should learn about Islam. Why? Muslims are terrified of people learning basic facts about Muhammad. No group in history has done more to keep the world in a state of ignorance about their founder than the Muslim community. Why would Muslims suddenly be happy about kids being taught Islam? They're happy because they know that if schools start teaching kids about Islam, under no circumstances will those kids be given accurate information about Islam. They'll be given a whitewashed, watered-down Walt Disney version of Islam. Muslims know that. If public schools start teaching kids about Islam, will these kids learn that Muhammad had sex with a prepubescent 9-year-old girl? Of course not. Will kids learn about Muhammad marrying the divorced wife of his own adopted son after causing the divorce by lusting after her? Not a chance. Will kids learn about Muhammad having sex with his slave girls? Will kids learn that Muhammad allowed his followers to rape their female captives? Will kids learn that Muhammad bought, owned, sold, and traded black African slaves? Will kids learn that Muhammad tortured a man for money? Will kids learn that the Quran allows Muslim men to beat their wives into submission? Will kids learn that, according to Islam, a woman's testimony is only half as reliable as a man's testimony because women are, by nature, stupid and immoral? Will kids learn that Muhammad ordered his followers to execute anyone who leaves Islam? Will kids learn that Muhammad called for the violent subjugation of the entire world? No, 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 no. Kids won't learn any of this because the curriculum will be put together by groups like CARE, and kids will get nothing but lies.
Shalom.
Kids will be told that Muhammad freed all slaves, and that Muhammad liberated women, and that the Quran promotes science, and that Islam produced an interfaith paradise until Christians came and ruined everything. Complete, utter, total nonsense. But that's what kids would be taught. Muslims know this, and that's why they cheer when a politician talks about teaching Islam in public schools. So, we know why Muslims would want kids to learn about Islam, but why would Joe Biden want kids to learn about Islam? Is he just pandering here? Maybe not. Maybe Joe Biden has put together his final coherent thought, because this actually makes perfect sense. They call him Creepy Joe, but he only seems creepy because we compare him with normal people. If we compare him with someone like Caligula, Creepy Joe doesn't seem so creepy. Joe Biden's creepiness is directly proportional to the normality of the person we're comparing him with. The more normal the person is, the creepier Joe Biden looks by comparison. So what if we compare Joe Biden with someone who's way, way creepier? What if kids were taught about the creepiest leader of all time, the Prophet Muhammad? Do you have any idea how creepy Muhammad was? Muhammad would have sex with 9 women and girls in a single night, but only take 1 bath. He would walk around covered in semen, and we don't even know where it came from. He used to suck on the tongues of little boys. He told his followers to lick each other's fingers. He put his male followers on a grooming schedule and told them when to shave their pubes and when to pluck their armpit hairs. He made them squat while peeing. He told them how many stones they had to wipe themselves with after going to the bathroom. His followers would drink his blood and rub his saliva on themselves. Muhammad was the single creepiest dude in history.
You see how crazy Islam is? This is where their leader. This is what their leader does. Well, I'm sorry to show all this nonsense, but you got to understand, when it comes to these things, if you want to learn about the beast, you want to learn about the evil of the world, because that's what it says. If you want to be a master in these things, you got to know about the good and the evil and how to master them, and what to choose the good and rebuke the evil, because the evil is really evil, family. When I say it's really evil, it's really, really evil. You got to understand, Islam does not come from a good foundation at all. It does not come from God. It comes from Satan. It comes from Satan. And if you don't know, I just played that video in the beginning. It said that supposedly Muhammad has spoke to an angel. It's supposed to be recorded by multiple sources saying that he spoke to an angel. And this angel supposedly was Gabriel, but this angel was Satan. As it says, even Satan turned himself to an angel of light. How much more would he turn his ministers into ministers of light? So let's proceed.
Maybe Joe Biden knows that if kids learn about Muhammad, Uncle Joe the super sniffer won't seem so creepy by comparison. Compared to Muhammad, Joe Biden is a saint. So if kids are taught the truth about Islam, they won't call him Creepy Joe. They'll call him Honorable Joe, Righteous Joe, Noble Joe, Ethical Joe. You can put anyone side by side with Muhammad, and that other person will suddenly seem like a pillar of virtue. Maybe Joe Biden knows that, and he thinks that he can protect his legacy and make himself look better by comparing himself with Muhammad.
So I'm going to go to this.
Or maybe he's just another garbage politician making empty promises in order to score some extra
right here
of Islamophobia.
Well, I'm not going to go to this one. I'm not going to go to this one. But what I'm going to say now that's very important is that when you see stuff like this, when you see stuff that people are kind of leaning to one direction, all of a sudden they're leaning to one direction and then they're trying to get this popular vote. These are not people you want in office. You want someone firm, someone that's controversial, someone that's going to say the same thing and it's going to be about the same. But you got to understand this, family. Do you know that the media was attacking Donald Trump before they even you got to look back, because we're not in the time of hype anymore. We're not in the time of hype, And if you look back, you'll realize that Trump was being attacked way more than presidents that deserved to be attacked. Obama was actually one of our worst presidents if you take piece by piece and see what he did. What Obama did single-handedly was some of the worst things you ever seen a president do. He did some of the worst things. Trump, you're looking at someone that's doing some minor things. You're looking at, if you compare him to what Bush did, you compare it to some of what Nixon did, what Ronald Reagan did, with some of the stuff that they did back then. If you put some of the stuff that they did together, you'll actually look at it and realize that the reason Trump was being attacked was not because of that he was clearly being some type of thing that they wanted to declare, but rather they didn't want him to be in office. They didn't want him to be in office who wasn't even part of their organization. Look at what he said about Islam.
I got a good feeling. Transition.
Like, obviously, you can see this was that 4-year time when the political attack was going on and all that. But you got to look at things with not emotion, with not the same eyes as the heathens, but look at things from a spiritual point of view. Look at things clearly without all the controversial gossip, rumors, and lies. Most of it be lies. So you got to really look at things clearly. So I want you to hear this video.
Donald Trump getting closer and closer of being too big to fail. His delegate count growing. The GOP frontrunner now dancing to the nomination. But as he starts acting more like a politician, his tough talk, especially about Muslims, amped up.
I think Islam hates us, and we have.
You see how he just said that? He wasn't part of. No one told him what to say. No one told him what to do. No one's holding his tail. No one's saying do this thing so he can get the popular vote. This man he somehow, some way, he was elected, being one of those people that's just kind of like a stick in the mud, just kind of floating around. That's how you know that something's going to happen. You know when something's going to happen when something goes against the grain, because everything's been going with the grain for a long time. John F. Kennedy tried to omit, you can look up his speech on secret societies. He tried to omit information concerning secret societies. And then what happened right after that? They killed him. And then now later on, you see that Trump's in office, and now you see prophecy pointing to the time frame that we're in. We're seeing a lot of major things happen in this time frame that we're in, and you're seeing such great. Exactly. Trump don't read scripts. He does not read scripts. One of the things we need Trump in office right now. You know why we need Trump in office right now? Because he's so naive. He can slip up and tell you something you don't know yet. You need someone like that in office. You need someone that's going to be easily to say what's going on. He is a lot of stuff that's undercover that he actually has brought out. I can bring out some other videos where that was stuff that, back then with war and stuff and certain events, they don't talk about it to the public. But Trump, he just says it. He'll say when stuff is happening, it'll just come out like water. He's like a cup with holes on the bottom. He's a leaking faucet. He just lets everything out. He's the perfect person to be in the office right now, because if he's in the office right now, then that makes it that much easier to find more information. And just hear that. Just hear how he says that.
His tough talk, especially about
That's how you know he's not running on a script or anything. You know he's not part of any organization, because the way that he handles things is like a regular person on the street, just keeping it real. Like, he's just keeping it real, and he's saying what he feel, but he's not. You can tell he's not part of no organization. You can tell he's not part of an organization, but obviously, family, no one's perfect. But let's let it proceed.
Muslims amped up.
I think Islam hates us, and we have to be very vigilant. We have to be very careful, and we can't allow people coming into this country who have this hatred.
Trump heading in.
He's right. And what he's talking about with Islam, he's right, because the foundation of Islam is hate. The whole name of Islam is submission, to bring it into forced submission into Islam. And there's a lot of other stuff. If you ever get a chance, you want to find something really interesting, I want you to look this up one day. And Q, if I can find it. Let's see if I can find it. This might be an idea right here. You can see One of the things that's talking about nowadays is this mystery. There's some type of mystery going on that's called Q. So I don't know if you guys ever heard of it, but there's like, they say it's conspiracy or whatnot, but it's an actual thing that's going on. If you look a little more into it, there's this thing that's going on, and maybe I'll find one of these videos and just get somebody.
QAnon is, in essence, a conspiracy theory that gives hope to people who want the things it says to be true.
And according to the conspiracy theory, Trump is actually leading an effort to prosecute villainous Democrats, most of whom are engaged in baby sex trafficking rings and committing other heinous crimes.
It also wraps in deep state conspiracy theories. It is used as a hopeful way to explain things like the Mueller probe into the Trump campaign.
I personally believe that much of what we are taught and told by authorities or institutions in this country is false information.
So you see, a lot of people are waking up, not just Christians, but a lot of people are waking up that this country is full of a lot of lies. America, as well as many other countries, but necessarily mainly America. America is one of those corrupt countries where there's not really a leader, but whoever's in a president position can have a lot of power. Not all power, but a lot of power. So you can see him being in his office, and a lot of people don't notice, but this Q thing has been going on for a while, and there's some indications that Trump might actually indeed be part of this group. And one of the reasons why is because he did this certain thing. He does a couple things. A couple things, if you ever see what he does, and it's broken down by some of their people, and you can see some of the things that he do will show that he is part of that organization, such as this one interesting one that happened with Trump and his water bottle. I don't know if you ever seen this one, but this one right here, this water bottle moment, if I can find this this little thing, I'll have to find it. But there's someone who breaks it down on this whole thing that talks about what he's doing. Let me see if I can find, or how you say it, Q, and let's see if I can find it. But pretty much they try to say, like, one of the things they'll say that it's like it was weird that he did that and whatnot.
It's the lowest level in history.
And we're going to defend and strengthen the tough reforms that will take place in the financial industry. Not tear them up like Trump says to do. We need to make sure that Wall Street can never wreck Main Street again.
It gets pretty deep. I'm not going to go into it now. But it has to do with this thing that he was doing.
Japanese companies have announced investments in the United States worth more than $8 billion, 17,000 jobs. Thank you. Oh, they don't have water. That's okay. What? No, it's okay. Oh. In China, we also announced $250 billion worth in trade investment deals that will create jobs in the United States. From China, I flew to the city of Da Nang in Vietnam.
We can't remain powerful if we don't have an...
So it's one of those things that, like, he kind of holds it a certain way, and apparently that's supposed to have a significance to this little organization and whatnot. Obviously, when it comes to these things, I wouldn't recommend joining no secret society or no organization like this, obviously. But when it comes to these things, just let it run its course. Just let it run its course when it comes to a lot of these secret societies and stuff, because it's going to end. They're going to have their end at some point, whether they're doing good work or bad work. If they're not serving the Lord, it doesn't matter. If they're doing work where they're trying to find some secrets and stuff, obviously they're out of their league when you understand that the beast cannot be defeated by men. So we got to understand these things. This is what's just one of those things. I'm not going to go into the deep secrets behind it and the cue behind it and all that stuff like that. I'm not going to try to look for it, but I'm just going to let you know this. The president opposite than Donald Trump is serving Satan, and he is willing to serve Satan for all that is worth, family. Anyone who's like that, you do not want to be your leader. You do not want him to be your leader, because if you let this person be your leader in that time, you're going to be in great danger ahead of time. Ahead of time, you're going to be in great danger.
Get your ice cold Bud Light, seltzer here. I'll take two.
I'm going to show you another one right here.
We all come from the same root here in terms of our fundamental basic beliefs. And I just want to...
So you can see the same root, he says. So a lot of people, they try to say we have the same belief, Islam and Christianity, which is completely wrong. We gotta really take this stuff in, that indeed, when it comes to this information that a lot of them are doing, when they're trying to give you some type of information that's not right at all and try to make it as a fact, it shows you the ignorance of the leaders. It shows you the ignorance of the leaders of the nations. Obviously, there's a lot of errors in the leaders of the nations, but we need to stand strong and be aware of such things like this. When they are quick to be on one side and quick to be on another side, that just shows you their intentions are not good at all. Their intentions are not good at all. Understand this. Anybody who's running a script, anybody who's in a secret society, their intentions are not put forth. So understand this. Understand these things. So we don't know what his whole intentions is, but listening to how he speaks about these things, he's not on the side of truth. He's not for the people.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity, for being engaged, for committing to action this November. You're doing what's been that's never been done before. You're registering and turning out 1 million Muslim voters this November. It matters. Your voice is your vote. Your vote is your voice. Muslim Americans' voices matter. I don't have to tell any of you that this is the most important election in modern American history. Muslim communities...
It's the most important election in modern history. That's an understatement. That's an understatement, family, because this is the last election. Believe it. This is the last election that's going to happen, because when 2023 comes, it's going to be some major things happening, 100%. So understand these things.
We're the first to feel Donald Trump's assault on black and brown communities in this country.
Listen to the nonsense. This is where the nonsense start to come from. When you start talking about, this is where they are going backwards and trying to play with people's emotions and say, oh, the black and brown community is always being racist. It's racist against women, racist against, like they say the most ignorant and dumbest stuff. You got to really think about it. We got to really think about it. When someone does these things, why are they playing on something that is a more of a emotional side of things rather than actual factual and evidential side of things? Because now we're in the world, because notice, President Trump's one of the first presidents besides Obama and the Bush, obviously, when he first started, when they was trying to get more famous, kind of like socially, like more famous socially, like with the social media. You got a lot of that tweeting going on now, a lot of Facebook, a lot of those things going on. This is not how any political leader should be. It shouldn't be boasting things or throwing things out on such methods as social media. I think that's nonsense. We should all understand that that's nonsense. A leader should not be the same way as a regular citizen is. That's why you elect them as leaders, to lead. You're supposed to lead the nation, but rather they're being like the nation and getting involved in the nonsense of the nation. So you see that this is one of the things that we got to understand when it comes to these so-called leaders.
With his vile Muslim band. That fight was the opening barrage in what has been nearly 4 years of constant pressure and insults I'll be a president who seeks out and listens to and incorporates the ideas and concerns of Muslim Americans on everyday issues that matter most to our communities. That will include having Muslim American voices as part of my administration. If I have the honor of being president, I will end the Muslim ban on day one. Day one. And I'm here today to ask you to join me in a fight to rip this poison from our...
You hear what Joe Biden's saying? He says that he's going to end the Muslim ban on day one. Does that sound good? Let's talk about this. Because there is actually something that I don't think Joe Biden is really processing that's very serious to some of these Muslims. I'm going to show you. If you've seen this, you probably know what I'm going to show you. But I want to show you this just to spark your remembrance on this. You probably have seen this. There was a general that was killed just recently. And what happened was there's a small, well, not really small, but a large group of people that actually vowed revenge. They actually vowed revenge on this. But let me just find a note for this when it comes to this so that I can show you. Because this is very important. Because if he allows Muslims just to come in, he's not really understanding what he's doing. He don't have any idea what he's doing. And then at that time, you're going to be surrounded by people that's going to already be worshiping the beast. They're going to be already worshiping the beast. And then when the beast get his power to reign, how much more are they going to worship the beast? So if they're worshiping the beast now with their heart and their tongue, and they're just saying they worship him, and they're having in their heart that they hate America, and then when the time comes for them to do what they want to do, then what are people going to do? What are they going to do when the beast is right then reigning, and then he's giving them the chance that, oh, you can actually kill them now, because that's what it says in Islam, that you can actually kill. I'm going to show you, see if I can find it here. If I can find it. Because if I can find it, then I'm going to see if it's here. No, not there. Let's see if I can find it. If not, then I'll just type it down, because I want you to see this. Because when it comes to what's going on behind the scenes, a lot of it's talked about real quick and then it goes away. But this one is something you need to understand, that this is something U.S. vows to continue. No, not this one. Vow revenge. Let's see if I can find it. So I want you to see this. It's pretty crazy. So this is basically this. I forget his name, but this is basically it. When this person died, they had basically had a stampede. The stampede killed about 56 people, and then they vowed revenge on his death after killing this so-called leader. And I'm gonna go back to this to make sure, because I want you to see this.
Thousands in Iran mourn the death of Qasem Soleimani. Their sorrow quickly turned to anger. A former commander of Iran's Revolutionary Guards warns the great nation of Iran will take a harsh revenge on the government of the U.S. That revenge may start Sunday, when the Iraqi parliament meets to vote whether to kick all U.S. troops out of the country for launching.
If you know, this is already happening. America is going at it with them. They're at there's been examples of rockets being fired at America from them, blowing up some ships. Obviously, those are the type of things that's kind of they're not going to bring forth. Those are secret wars that's going on. But
missile strike that killed Soleimani. And there's another potential flashpoint tomorrow with the funeral of the Iraqis killed in the attack. Their procession will take them through the green zone and within a mile of the U.S. Embassy.
Well, joining me now from Washington is Matthew Kranig. He's a professor at Georgetown University School of Foreign Service. Also worked on issues involving Iran at the Pentagon during both the Bush and the Obama administrations. Thanks for joining us, Matthew. Well, Matthew,
Pleasure to be on.
yeah, as we mentioned, you worked for both the Bush and the Obama administration.
All right.
Did you know Geico is now offering an extra 15% credit on car and motorcycle policies? So what are you waiting for? DJ Khaled to be your motivational coach?
Yo, Devin, remember to brush in the...
Nonsense.
These young American servicemen and women are the first wave of military troops arriving in the Middle East amid the growing crisis with Iran. 3,500 strong, joining the already tens of thousands of U.S. troops in the region. Tensions flaring after a U.S. drone strike last week killed Iran's top military official, General Qasem Soleimani.
Look at this group. Do you see how massive this group is? This is what happened that day. Basically, a bunch of different Muslims band together, and they vowed revenge. So in there, imagine this, in a lot of their hearts is set a motion of revenge. Obviously, when it comes to like 9/11, whether it was conspiracy or not, something way worse is going to happen if you allow groups all of a sudden the doors to be open and be like, oh yeah, it's all fine now. And then they enter in and they're going to do some chaos. If you've seen my video, The World's Never Seen This Level of Truth, look what Ishmael does when he gets in, when Golgotha, I forgot his name, when he invites them, when one of the Jews invite him in with him, he kills them for no reason. For no reason. In the Bible, it's recorded that Ishmael kills them for no reason. None. That's not one reason that's put there that he kills them. He just kills them. And then he kills everyone else there. He kills the whole group. He kills all the rest of the Jews. Some of the Jews escape. And they go and tell some people. And then they go there. Actually, I think it was Johanan or something like that. And he went and actually went against Ishmael. And then Ishmael basically let them go in a way. They basically escaped. And then Ishmael ran away. It just shows you, because it's actually talked about with Ishmael, that as the scripture says, every man's hand shall be against him, and he shall be against every man. So these are those people that they come from. In fact, their Islamic book, that Quran, actually declares that they're from Ishmael. That's what their book declares, and actually it tries to reverse the promises that's on Isaac. That, remember, Ishmael was born from Abraham and Isaac was born afterwards. And Isaac was the blessed son, but Ishmael was from Hagar, the Egyptian. So she was not part of that salvation that was promised to his son Isaac, and then to his later sons through Jacob, who was ended up getting the name Israel. So it's very important to understand that the line of Ishmael had problems throughout the whole Bible. From Ishmael came Egypt. From Ishmael came the rulers of Egypt. From Ishmael, Esau also linked in with Ishmael and started to be one people with Ishmael. From Ishmael also came the slaughter of the people after the first fall of Jerusalem. From Ishmael, after the fall of the second Jerusalem, came more persecution from the Ottomans. Understand this. There's nothing new under the sun. So understand this. Joe Biden is not your friend. He's not a helper. He's trying to get himself elected, but does not care about what risk he is risking to the people around him. But let's let it proceed.
In the heart of Iran, a public outpouring of grief, overwhelming the streets of its capital.
Trump made a big mistake. He killed our hero.
Cries drowned out by angry chants. Soleimani, a beloved figure in Iran, seen as standing up to the West. Now, his death and the way it was carried out, a game changer for Iran and the United States.
Mr. Trump, you don't have any right to kill him.
My colleague, Martha Raddatz, one of the few Western journalists allowed in the country.
This procession's so packed you can barely move, but the emotion is everywhere. People have a very strong message for America.
This, exactly, brother. Marva 7, exactly. I just went over a thing that one of my brothers has sent me concerning that they want to get into office because they want to declare Sharia law. They want to declare their laws in America. Understand this. I mean, just look at if you just look at their countries of what's over there, you can get a good idea of why it's dangerous to let them in with the mentality that they have. Because a lot of them have the mentality that if they kill you, do you know this? Listen to this when I tell you this. Do you know that they have the mentality that if they kill you, they're going to heaven? They're going to heaven if they kill you. That's what's in their books. Their books record that if they kill you, they are even guaranteed heaven. See if I can go to some of these places so you can get a good idea what you're really dealing with some of these places. Because a lot of these places, I don't know where this is at, but I'm gonna type down a place. I'm gonna let you look up a place real fast. Let's look up Yemen, for example. Right? That's like a big war area, Yemen. You can see Yemen. Is this how you want America to look like? Is this how you want America? Because this is a battle zone. This is what, when they get like this, you know what they're really thinking about? If they kill you, they win. If they kill you, they win. If they die, long as they kill you into death, they are able to make it. Let's look at that. I'm glad that you asked that. What is Sharia law? So you see, I'm gonna let this play, and then we're gonna look up what is Sharia law. What is, I don't know how you spell it. Sharia. If I look at what he said, how he spelled it. Sharia law. Maybe that's it. I don't know. We're gonna look that up after this.
Chanting "Death to America." Inside the funeral service, tears from Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, weeping and praying over Soleimani's grave.
There are few figures who were held in higher esteem by the Iranian people than Mr. Soleimani. He was the man who brought back pride.
On the ground, his image everywhere. More than 1 million united in their cry for revenge.
Revenge must happen, and it is certain.
What kind of
Revenge must happen, and it's certain, he says.
revenge do you want?
Anything.
24-year-old Hussein is a college student.
Soleimani was Arab. They killed him. Why? Is this democracy? Are we human or not? What should we do? You tell us.
What is your message to America?
I'm saying we love Americans, but look at your president.
Soleimani, a critic of the United States, taunted President Trump in a speech in 2018. Let me tell you, Mr. Trump, the gambler, know that we are near you in places that don't come to your mind. The U.S. moved to kill the revered general who commanded the elite Revolutionary Guard, proving consequential across the region. Members of the Iranian parliament chanting "Death to America." And this
Hear that? They're all, even their politics, grabbing together, saying "Death to America."
weekend, an ominous sign, a red flag symbolizing war, raised above an Iranian mosque.
There it is.
We took action last night to stop a war. We did not take action to start a war.
In the face of criticism, President Trump insisted the attack was a necessary measure.
Soleimani was.
So I'm not gonna go into too much into that, but let's look at this Sharia law. Let's see if I can find. Maybe we can have a certain group person look this up. I want to see if David Wood got that. Let's see if he got that information on that. Here it is. Let's see this.
So, how will you strengthen penalties against companies who hire illegal immigrants?
Oh, go. Let's see.
Robert Spencer here for Jihad Watch, answering the question, what is Sharia? Sharia is the path to the water. That's what people will tell you. And it is a wholly benign system of individual religious practice for Muslims. The instructions that they should pray 5 times a day, the circumstances under which they are obligated to make ablutions before they pray, various marriage laws, and so on.
And it is with that kind of understanding of Sharia in mind, that it is comparable to Catholic canon law or to Jewish law, that Sharia advocates in the United States, including most notably the Hamas-linked Muslim Brotherhood front group, the Council on American Islamic Relations, have been fighting energetically against anti-Sharia laws all over the country, saying, this is just personal religious observance. How could you possibly object to this? You are a racist, bigoted Islamophobe because you want to interfere with Muslims practicing their religion in ways that you would never dream of interfering with Jews, Christians, Hindus, Buddhists, anybody else practicing their religion. It's pure Islamophobia. Well, I'm here to tell you that, as you might expect, that's not the case. The only reason why anybody cares about Sharia in the United States is because it is a comprehensive system of laws that includes not just individual religious observance, but a political system, and not just a political system, but a political system that is authoritarian, violent, and supremacist at its core. Sharia contains regulations that mandate death for those who exercise their freedom of conscience and want to leave Islam, for those who are deemed to have blasphemed against Islam by insulting Allah or the Quran or the Prophet, or even by speaking honestly about their contents in ways that Muslims object to. Sharia mandates that women have a second-class status, that they can be beaten when they're disobedient, that the value of their testimony is half that of a man, that the value of their inheritance is half that of their brothers, that they can be killed if they are out of line in terms of having sullied the family's honor by zina, some sexual indiscretion, that it is an honor for them to have their genitals mutilated, and the sexual pleasure thus decreased so that they can be more easily controllable. These things are all aspects of Sharia. Sharia mandates discrimination against non-Muslims. It mandates that they cannot build new houses of worship or repair old ones, so their communities are always in a state of decline. It mandates that a Muslim man can marry non-Muslim women, but Muslim women cannot marry non-Muslim men, so that once again, the wife goes to the husband's household and the non-Muslim community is always declining. They cannot hold authority over Muslims, so that the non-Muslims are at the most menial levels of society because they can't even have a small business in which they would employ Muslims. That's not allowed. They might have one in which they are all Christians or all other non-Muslims in this business, but even then they would always have to defer to Muslim competitors who had Muslims on their staff, so that you'd have, for example, the colloquial term, the slang term for Christians in Pakistan is sweepers. And many times you will see news items where Muslims are speaking derisively of the sweepers, because the Christians can only hold the most menial jobs in society and they sweep the streets. They are sweepers. Now, this is all considered to be the divine law, the law of Allah, the perfect and immutable law of Allah. Chapter 5, verse 3 of the Quran says, "This day I have perfected your religion for you." Those who are holding out great hopes for Islamic reform should ponder that. How can you reform what's perfect? How can you reform what you have been taught is something that is already in its best possible form? It can't be done. Now, the Quran is also many times telling us that we must obey Allah and His Messenger, that we must obey Allah and Muhammad. But very little is said about Muhammad in the Quran. He's only mentioned by name 4 times, and there's quite a lot of reason. You can see my book, Did Muhammad Exist? Quite a lot of reason to doubt that those actually even refer to Muhammad themselves, and that's only 4 references.
See you later, fam.
So, how do you obey the Messenger? You have to go to the Hadith. The Hadith are the voluminous corpus of what Muhammad supposedly said and did. The reports that are deemed authentic are considered normative for Islamic law. Quran plus Hadith plus the Sirah, the biography of Muhammad, that's the Quran and the Sunnah together, make up Sharia when codified by Islamic jurists. Now, once you have Sharia, the law that is codified from the statements of Muhammad and the statements of Allah Himself in the Quran, those are the 2 highest authorities. There is no appeal from them. It is not for an individual Muslim to dispute, as chapter 33, verse 36 of the Quran tells us, what has been settled by Allah and His Messenger. So, it's the perfect and immutable law of Allah, and it mandates all this oppression. This is why there are anti-Sharia initiatives in many states in the United States today, and why there should be more. People have to understand that Sharia mandates that no non-Muslim has any authority over a Muslim or can by right exercise any such authority. That means that all governments that aren't based on Islamic law are illegitimate, and Muslims have the obligation to fight to undermine those governments and ultimately overthrow them and replace them with Sharia governments. Now, this is an actively subversive imperative in that case.
Yep, that is exactly right. That's why Islam is a great danger, because it's the only religion out of all the religions that recognize the Messiah, but denies him his Godhead, denies him as the Son of God, who is God and who is also our Father. And how is that all? How is that all understood? It's understood that indeed the Father and the Son are connected by one Spirit, but they are two persons. You have the Father, then you have the Son, because you can only have a Father and a Son if you have a Father and a Son. You can't just have one person and say they're a father and their son, because then that makes the Father also created, because the Messiah says that he's created. He says, in the beginning was God, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. In the beginning, obviously understanding those things, it's the Messiah who is also God. Not God as in the person God, but he is God. God exalted him to Godhead. He exalted him, and this is known in Psalms. In the book of Psalms, he says, God, even thy God. And we got to understand what these things mean, because this is very profound. That's why you have the Yud He Vav He, the Yahweh, the Jehovah. That name actually means the Father and the Son. It means I am that I am. That's the Father and the Son in one name. That's why he says in that day it will be one Yahweh and his name one. If you see where it says there'll be one Lord and his name one, some people fall into error there, but they don't know the actual Hebrew is actually saying that day it shall be one Yahweh, or one I am that I am, and his name one. That one actually means unity. That means that shall be one, and that one in Hebrew, there's 3 different words for one in Hebrew. There's one as in unity, there's one as in the number one, and there's one as in singular. But he uses the word for unity. So that's why he says they're in union. So that's a good point to bring up there. That's very important to understand. That's why Islam is indeed Antichrist. That's why Islam is Antichrist, because it's anti-Messiah, anti-Son of God, anti-Christian. And it's against you. It's completely against you. They are open. Understands when I say this. When they kill you, they believe that they are entering into paradise. In fact, the scripture says that. The scripture says the day will come that people will kill you and think that they're serving God. But let's proceed.
Sharia, when people try to act against it, is something that is a direct threat to the secular constitutional republic that the founding fathers established. The non-establishment of religion was one of the greatest strokes of genius in history, and I do not exaggerate, my friend, because the non-establishment of religion, the First Amendment of the United States Constitution, allows for the idea that people who disagree, as we all do, on the most basic questions, will live together in peace and harmony without one group trying to gain hegemony over the other. And the delegitimizing of any such successful attempt to gain hegemony. It is the only way that there can be a peaceful society in a world such as ours, where movement is so easy and where societies are of necessity pluralistic. And so, we have in Sharia a direct threat to that freedom, to the freedom of speech with the blasphemy laws, to the freedom of conscience with the death penalty for apostasy and blasphemy and heresy and so on. Yeah. We have a direct threat to the idea of equality of rights of all people before the law and equality of access to services with the special privileged status that Muslims have in Sharia. And
so that's pretty much the summary of it. That's it right there. So that's what Sharia is. Sharia law is a problem. The Sharia law is not a good thing. It's something that some people don't understand. We see that Joe Biden basically, without understanding, he basically told them to declare Sharia law. He's one of those people that you do not want to support. When someone's like that and does not have any idea what they're doing, they're one of those people that will lead a lot of people into a lot of danger when it comes to these things. As I mentioned before, the Daniel 12 prophecy, this is actually one of the hearts of that prophecy. It tells us that the Dome of the Rock, which one of our brothers actually talked about this, it has a description on it that denies the Messiah. This is actually that abomination of desolation sitting right there in the place so-called Jerusalem, and is that indeed abomination of desolation. Now, I went over this before. It's very important to understand there are three. As the scripture says, Messiah says, let the reader understand. If you read it, there are three abominations of desolation mentioned by Daniel the prophet. This third one would be the one on Daniel 12. This will be the original daily sacrifice and the abomination of desolation that is abominable and disrespectful to the Messiah that causes that area to be desolate because of that abomination and because of other abominations such as that. So obviously no Christian is apparently allowed in this area because it caused that area to be desolate, obviously. But this is one of those areas that's going to be destroyed. This is that Dome of the Rock. There's a lot of things that happened during this time. This time would be 692 AD. So there's a lot of things that happened there. It wasn't just the Dome of the Rock. It's a lot of things that happened. It's also including with the change up of the Kaaba stone. As I mentioned before, this is what they do. They steal a lot of content. They steal a lot of things. As the scriptures talk about, it says as a curse on the one that steals and swears by the name of the Lord falsely. As well as the thief, because they steal from the Bible. They steal a bunch of different things. They're one of the biggest slave owners. They had the biggest slave trade ever, bigger than even the transatlantic slave trade altogether. It was the biggest slave trade ever. They obviously showing that they're seeing the mark of the beast. The mark of the beast is that saying. It's a saying that's called the Shahada. The Shahada is a saying that is actually a curse. Never say that saying. Never say it in your heart. It's just some saying that is basically about their idol. I was just going into it a little more, the background teaching of it, how they teach of a false Jesus. They do. They have a false Jesus in their teaching. They have a false Jesus in their teaching. They actually talk about this. It's really crazy and really creepy when you hear about it. They talk about their beast rising. You have a beast of the earth rising up from the earth. I mentioned this before. All these things are controversial. All these things are controversial, but they're facts. It says there is a Bible that says Allah and the Most High are the same. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy? That's when you find when there's errors, when people try to link these two religions together with the truth, with the lie. Because this is a lie. And if someone was to bring this and put this together, it will be obviously a controversial problem because it's a lie. See how it stole the design of the New Jerusalem and tried to design that Kaaba stone that they all circle around. As I went over before, this is the design of New Jerusalem, and this is the design as Kaaba is redesigned, which was designed based upon supposedly Muhammad said that this is the design that he wanted it to look like, which most likely would have been told by that angel, which was Satan. So it's very important to understand that. Looking at ancient manuscripts, you can see, like I went over before, it will be in that name as you see there with the crossed swords. It's a swear. Actually, the name of their God, supposedly Allah, is a curse. If you look at the name in Hebrew, here it is right here. Here's the name in Hebrew. Let's look it up. This is Allah in Hebrew right here. It means to swear or to curse. That's what the name means. To swear or to curse, to be under an oath. You can just see that? It's very crazy. A lot of things are very crazy and very crucial. As I went over before, Zechariah 5 and 3, it's going to talk a little bit about that curse. It says, this the curse that goes on the face of the earth. He that stealeth and he that sweareth shall be cut off. That's why Messiah, remember when the Messiah, he really beats down that you to swear not. Don't swear at all. Swear by nothing. Because if you do that, you're in danger of condemnation. That's why it says, therefore a curse devours the earth, and those who live in it are held guilty. Therefore the inhabitants of the earth are burned, and few men are left, because it's going to be punishment later on. But see, there's a curse going on that's going to devour the earth. There's a curse that's going to devour the earth, and this is where it's going to come from. It's a lot of information to this. I mentioned before where they came from, the land that they're in, and a lot of different things like that. I don't want to go over their abominations, but understanding a lot of these things are very similar For example, remember Diana in the Bible? You had Diana, the moon goddess, and you'll hear they'll say, "Great is Diana of the Euphrates." Remember that? And then it's the same thing with this, "Allah is great." This saying right here is what they declared. They try to say the same thing that was said in Ephesus. So they're saying the same thing. They got the child. They do the same stuff as with Baal. They do the child sacrifice. I played a video the other day because all this stuff is important to understand. This is why it's important to know this stuff, because when it comes to prophecy, we need to be careful when it comes to these leaders. So you can see here, here's one of the things that they do often. This is called the Day of Ashura. They basically, I don't understand it myself, but the summary behind it is that it's a celebration celebrating one of the prophet's brothers that died, and they pretty much do like this symbolic child sacrifice right here. Sometimes they'll cut themselves, and sometimes they'll whip themselves with these type of whips that till they bleed and stuff. It's all types of crazy stuff. But here they're doing a symbolic reference of a child sacrifice. You can see the blood on the kid, and you can see let it play. This is basically a great idea of what it would have looked like to see these heathens do something abominable like this. Because right now, obviously, with the social reformity that we have, they can't just do this. But if they had the chance, they would surely do it. So I went over this before. You can see they do it like a little walk. And there's something very strange at the end where he's kind of pointing that arrow at the child. And then you got the priest and all that stuff. So they're kind of pointing that arrow at the kid right there. Skip a little bit. And then you got this weird cradle right here that's rocking, and it's got blood splattered on it. You can see. And then there's a red flag of war right there. That red flag declares that they're making war. So there it is. That's the modern way of child sacrifice. Is either it's done in secret, or if it's done publicly, it's not going to be an actual sacrifice. It's going to be symbolic for that look of that child sacrifice. So this is Baal worship. This is what they are. They're Baal worship. In fact, they go all the way back. When you look at their background, their history goes all the way back to Baal worship. So you see how they got the star and the moon? That goes all the way back. That goes really far back to that symbolic of that moon goddess. You will see a lot of that with the Babylonian tablet, still with the same type of things. Let me just show you this other one. Not this, but see if I can find it. Unless I removed it. There's a mention of right here. You can see this image right here is known with all of these names. Baal, Osiris, Baal, Polio, Diana. You can see Isis, Asroth. That was one of the problems that they was dealing with in Egypt when they kept on worshiping Asroth. You can see a lot of these had to do with that moon and star. You can see this. It keeps rising up throughout history because that's what Satan keeps trying to do, to get them to worship him and that bull. That is the same thing as they were trying to do that bull worship and that Baal worship. That's what Satan, he just never ends with that. So you can see here, the star and the moon, the same thing. Nothing different. Nothing new under the sun. There's nothing new under the sun. He's always trying to do the same thing. It's the same evil in different generations. So you can see this would have been the Ottomans. This would have been what the Ottomans were doing. You can see they was putting these things on their heads. They were putting the sayings on their heads, on their right arms. And this is what they're going to try to force later on. Right now they're doing it willingly. They're choosing it willingly. But the time is going to come where it's going to be where that beast is going to try to make it an important thing that's going to happen. But understand that this is indeed what we're seeing. We're seeing that horrible practice is the Day of Ashura. Not going to go over this video. It's a horrible practice. But it's the same thing that happened with Baal. They were cutting themselves with Baal. They were cutting themselves before. They're doing it now. The same thing they're doing now. They're walking around idols. The same thing they did before. It's nothing new under the sun. So it's very important to understand this. And also understand, remember, the time of the beast is going to be the time of iron and clay. Because the name Arab actually means mixed. To mix or mingle. Because remember it said that iron is going to mingle. It's going to mix with them. Kind of like mingle with them. And we're seeing a lot of that wickedness. That madness. So you're going to see a lot of that stuff like that. You're going to see a lot of things that has to be noted. A lot of things that are going to be very, very creepy. If you ever seen a little bit on this, I had went over this a little bit on the information on how they mingle, where the Pope back then actually had to do with creating Islam and how that actually had to happen. You can see here is one that's private. But obviously this video would go into that. This video will go into it. Maybe this is a summary. This person goes into it, into how they came together and whatnot. But I'll let you hear a little bit of the summary of how they came together.
Many of you have asked if I
because
could do a
it's
study
crazy.
on the fact that Islam was created by Roman Catholicism, and I could, but
go back a little bit.
Many of you have asked if I could do a study on the fact that Islam was created by Roman Catholicism. And I could, but the truth is that there are some excellent resources out there that prove it. And, a lot of these things I'd have to actually go there and show, over to the Far Eastern countries and things and show the connections. And that's already been done by someone else. I'm going to be referring you to that video here in a minute. But this one here I have showed, I have a video on this thing, the Muhammad's Believe It or Else, good little comic book, very funny. Some of the things that Islam actually teaches, it's absurd to the highest degree. Islam is just another fairy tale put out by the mother of harlots, the Roman Catholic Church. But as far as this one just shows kind of the goofy beliefs that they have. But as far as the actual tie to the Roman Catholic Church, and that the Roman Jack Chicks comic book series, things or whatever, historically documented photographs, because it happened many, over 1,000 years ago. And so this one here is very, very good. It shows a lot of the connections. But I want to recommend a video to you. It's put out by a man named Dr. Walter Veith. Okay, now he is a Seventh-day Adventist. And I disagree very much with the Seventh-day Adventist teachings and things like that. I think a lot of them are lost because they're trusting in their own self-righteousness, their own good works. They believe in keeping the commandments, keeping the Sabbath day, and all that other stuff. But in spite of that, I think that there are some that are saved. And I think Dr. Walter Veith is one of those. That's why I recommend this video. He does an exceptional job. Very, very good job at it. And again, I cannot.
And I think who he's talking about, he did a great job on explaining it. This is a note of one of his notebooks that he goes over that. Obviously, I got where he does that long talk.
This information came from Alberto Rivera.
This is a different conversation on it, but this one, I believe, will be that longer talk here. This is going to be
the Vatican helped
a little more
to finance.
information on it. And then here is another one too that goes over it. And it just goes into detail onto those things, into the ancient things of those things, and it goes into what happened and what's written and what's recorded. And just if you get a chance to ever see this note or see these things, you'll find out what actually happened. You'll find out what actually happened, because a lot of the history isn't brought forth by a lot of historians because it can get controversial. See, that's obviously controversial. So some of these things can get really controversial, but it's truth. That's all that matters is truth. Is there another one on that? This is just showing the Vatican doing stuff with Islam nowadays. But this stuff gets really deep. I'm not going to go into all the detail right now into these things. But indeed, this is something that we have to keep in mind, that Ishmael is indeed that wicked root. Ishmael is that wicked root, and it's going to be used to destroy Babylon. Ishmael's, like the brother said, Ishmael is going to be used as a sword to destroy Babylon. It's going to be used as to destroy a lot of different things. So there's going to be one of those things that's going to happen. It's going to really take off, and unfortunately, they're obviously, they show signs that they're crazy. But unfortunately, when it comes to the point when the beast is going to have power, they're going to be quick to try to kill you. They're going to be quick to try to kill someone, because understanding that they are indeed antichrist. They're against the truth. If they get that leader that's going to get them the chance to do what they imagine of doing, if they get the chance to do what they imagine of doing, then they're going to do some damage. So understand, Biden supports this. This is what Biden supports. He supports this. He can say whatever he wants, but if he comes down to it, a lick and split, he'll jump right to it. He'll jump right to wherever he can get the popular vote from. He'll jump right to it. So this is the type of stuff that he supports. This is what he supports. So by trying to teach this stuff in schools, the type of hate that's actually displayed here in Islam is really crucial to understand that he's not on the side of truth, nor on the side of America. He's not on the side of America. He's not on the side of truth. Obviously, he's not someone you want to be in office. So we don't want Islam to be anywhere close to the office. We don't want Islam to be anywhere close to the office. So we have to be careful when it comes to these things. They have nothing to do with truth at all. So with that, family, beware of some of these things that happen nowadays when they try to take people's hearts on making them try to think that they're good when they're actually evil. A lot of these leaders nowadays are evil. A lot of them. Maybe even all of them. Maybe even all of them. Maybe. But with that, family, I just wanted to go over these things on if you had to vote, do not vote Biden, because he's not on your side and he's not about truth. So understand that, family. It's the most important thing to note here. So with that, be blessed, be beloved, and amen.